I'm Kelvin Lymer, and I'm from Worcestershire, England.
You know, the very essence of the mental game is this. The only reason an event matters is because we make it matter.
Welcome to the Mullins Farrier podcast.
I had a soccer coach, and he always said, we are going to be the fittest team always out there. Because in the moment, you don't want to be worried about being tired. You want to be focused on the soccer game.
Right.
Which is what's going to translate for me, hopefully, in the CJF, is that I'm not worried about being tired. I can focus on the task at hand.
And granted, he was like, get your specimens made. 3 months before you take your exam, get all your AW specimens made. And it's good to have other people putting that pressure on you as well. Sometimes if it's a single journey, and you've not got mentors that are coaching you, helping you, you kind of rest a little bit.
If you're hearing this, you are currently on the non-subscriber feed. If you would like to hear this episode in its entirety, please subscribe using the link below. If you're a student, apprentice, or just find yourself in a situation where it isn't financially feasible to subscribe, please reach out to me on Facebook or through the website. The good folks at Out West Design and Fabrication are lending their support by helping us to cover your scholarship subscription. You can check out many of their incredible projects on their Facebook page. Out West Design and Fabrication, your choice for Farrier rakes. Now here's a sample of this week's episode. Thank you for listening.
Most people that I know in this industry only want the best for the other people in the industry, which is a pretty cool thing.
Welcome, everyone. This episode comes out a few days after my return from the Hoof Care Summit in Kansas City, where I got to share a booth with my friend Andrew DeVisser, who was selling his knives, his forges, and his book on personal finances. I was there selling swag and podcast subscriptions, while also getting to meet many listeners in person, which is always a highlight of any Farrier event for me. So thank you to everyone who stopped by to say hi. To all our new subscribers, welcome. And thank you for supporting this. I couldn't do it without you. We had a draw at the event for anyone who was a current subscriber or who subscribed while they were there at the booth for a Tyler Jost driving hammer. And I'm excited to announce that Lloyd Lapp was the winner of the hammer and got to bring it home with him at the end of Summit. A special thank you to Tyler for donating that hammer to the cause. I met today's guest during my epic stay in England last fall. He was one of the many generous folks who helped to sort me out on the trip. Danny Bennett took me to see Kelvin's renowned shoeing lab a few days after this interview, and Kelvin took me for a tour. I felt like the kids in Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. So many wondrous inventions in so many colors. It made me think of my conversations with Derek Boupard of 3D Pad fame, and I imagined that Derek's place looked very much the same. Fast forward to this week's summit, and I discovered in conversation with Derek that he and Kelvin and Jim Blurton have combined forces on a product line, including an odorless and non-toxic hoof glue. I'm very excited to see more of the results of that particular fusion of Farrier minds. Kelvin and I touch on his experience as the Team Farrier for the British Endurance Team, some of his inventions, including the squish pad, and the very early start of his career. A warning to those driving while listening, Kelvin's soothing, smooth voice may lull you into a trance, so you may want to pull over for this one. Anyway, it was a pleasure to get a glimpse into the creative mind of this incredibly generous man. I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as I did.
Okay. You have a fairly big booth here at Focus.
It's grown. Obviously, I've been involved with all sorts of materials over the years, and one of the things I've got involved with and manufacturing is 3D shoes.
Right. Now, how did that start?
It started, I was very ill about 4 years ago, and obviously I'm a very active person, but I need to keep my mind active.
Right.
So I then started to put all the ideas and designs together, found a 3D printer, and started away I went. And then I met a few other people, similar-minded, that obviously not into horseshoeing, but engineering ways.
Right.
And probably as mad as me.
Scientists?
And from one printer now, we've got quite a lot
Okay.
of different types and different models and doing different things.
Okay. Yes, when 3D printing came out, it was a new technology, and I saw it kind of pop up everywhere with different industries.
Yes.
And then it was just a matter of time before somebody got into it with horses. But
taking hold of it, you can do so many things with it. The
Right.
materials, you can add things to it, take things away. And obviously, because of my traditional skills of shoemaking I've had in competition shoeing and things like that, and competition horses I've dealt with, I was able to introduce all sorts of things to it without putting weight to it,
right.
which is one of the
Right.
key things.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the things as I was involved with was endurance horses, and all the packages I was putting on there, some of them are just ridiculous weight.
And for a horse that's going to
Do
travel
100
that far.
miles at the 21k an hour. So I may be keeping them sound, but long term, what other parts of the long term injuries may I be causing?
Right.
So it's enhanced so many other things. And I've got endurance horses, eventers, show jumpers, dressage horses, pleasure horses now, all working in them.
Okay. And do you still run a shoeing practice now?
Yep.
Or okay.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah,
Man,
it's
you're a busy man.
Yeah, it's every day. Yep.
Okay. I guess we'll go even further back. How did you become a horseshoer in the first?
Obviously, like most farriers, I was riding horses at home, and my farrier then was a man called Lionel Sparry, of which I said to him, at a mere age of 11, I'd like to be a farrier. He said, if you fancy it, come and give me a hand. When I was at school, and the after school holidays, I used to go there.
Oh, okay.
And left school at 16, and I don't know anything else.
Right to the races you went. Yeah.
That's it. When shoemaking was a thing, you couldn't bought shoes or machine-made shoes are not the best. We were taught to make shoes and fit them.
Okay.
So everything had handmades on, but very few had factory shoes on because it's
Just wasn't.
no, it wasn't done that way. So everything was handmade.
Okay. And when you say handmade, was most of it concave or?
Most of it concave, flat.
Okay.
Yeah, on the bigger horses, on the shires and things like that, we did. But
Right.
everything was if you're in the forge, 23 sets.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was it. And, every day making shoes. And then when I obviously qualified, went on my own. And during the apprenticeship, I was got mad keen into competitions.
Okay.
What we try and do is compete and work, practice at the same time. My body gave up basically. I'd probably done more damage to my wrists, or in a few years I was doing it, probably in the 10 years, than I realised, and had to have some reconstruction surgery and whatever.
Okay.
So that put an end to my shoeing competition days.
Yeah. And then.
And
the
then
body
full
gave
stop.
up.
That's it. It gave up big
Right.
time. Yeah.
Okay. And so what would your routine be like in order to accomplish all those things and still have a round of horses? How did you make that work?
At the same time as I was doing that, I then took on apprentices, so that helped out.
Right.
But I was taught you made shoes, so you made shoes every day. There's always someone in the forge making shoes, so I run the same thing as I was taught.
Okay.
So there's always an apprentice learning to make shoes, and we're making shoes, and just kept going on that way. Obviously, when I came to a sudden halt, we started the shoemaking, and we started the business carried on.
Right.
So I just had time to rest and heal. But I was told then by my doctors to don't carry on doing what you're doing, make a change. So I did. And that's when at that point, obviously I was doing a few endurance horses. And then the horse specifically came to mind called Snuffy, that had been on the British team, but not been finishing quite well.
Okay.
So I took that on, turned it around, and then next thing I was asked to be Team Farrier. And I was there for, I think, about 30 years.
And and that is a whole other line of questioning we can go down.
It's a tough sport.
Yeah.
And what they do in one day, most horses won't even do in 6 weeks, 4 weeks. So all terrains, speeds, everything's got faster.
Right.
Materials have changed. Everything's changed so much in the last 30 years. It's unbelievable, unrecognisable.
Okay. So in the beginning, what did the shoeing and the shoeing packages look like? And then what have you transitioned to now?
It was probably a leather pad, bit of silicone, and a bit of 5/8/7/16.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just lots of
that basic
wearability,
That's
basically.
it, yeah, a bit of concave, and we were shoeing them during the race. They were wearing them that fast
Okay.
because the materials then weren't quite right for the terrain. And over a period of time, I then used to study where they were going to compete, go out and have a look at the terrain, and then virtually set the horses up, because I wanted it to be like a Formula One. I didn't want to do resets or have to reshoe a horse, because obviously you're risking then having muscle cramp and you're picking the horse's foot up.
Right. Okay.
And certain things. So obviously every time you pick that horse's leg up to do something, you could cause a muscle cramp, that's horse's out. So I then developed in little shoes, one which is now called the More Sport. So you had durability and wear, and I wanted it to be worn out at the end. If it all went right, all I did is just look and check.
Yeah. And now, if I remember correctly, you used to do a double crease in your shoes.
Yes,
did
that's
you?
it. Double followed, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And that was just to give more coverage of the
Get
sole.
more coverage, make the shoe lighter, and make it wear. Yeah. It was just to give it a bit more grip.
Okay. And then how thick would those shoes be?
Oh, well, sometimes they were a quarter inch thick.
Really?
Yeah, depending on where they were going.
Okay.
Yeah, and you'd have different setups. If you're going to, like in the desert, you have a different shoe for that to where you would in, say, Montcook in France. It's a different terrain altogether, different shoe setup, different depths.
Right.
So if you're going over rocks, you'd have a different type of height of shoe to where you would with sand. So I just changed the setups with each terrain, and hopefully the weather conditions will be higher predicted.
Another thing that came up in your discussion with Danny was the placement of traction devices. Too,
That's right, yeah.
So, and then you found that it was setting them further ahead than typically.
Yeah, people put them on the end of the heel, and I brought it forward. Robin Newton then did a study on where to place the pins, but I just did it from my own findings during the endurance horses, because a lot of people were putting them on Mordax nails, pin nails in nail.
Okay.
Yeah. And I have quite a few horses I assessed that they actually rocked on them, which is obviously not good.
Right, yeah. Because it's too much height at the toe that you're trying to...
And then you've got soft tissue injuries and things like that. So there's so many variables you've got to take into account.
Right.
So I got to play with all sorts of materials, and the science at the beginning of that, you're thinking, what, 10, 20 years ago? 20 years ago, science in the Farrier was not really going that way.
Right.
Whereas now there's an explosion of it.
Right. Yeah. In the end, how did you figure out to position them?
It was a wear pattern on the actual shoe itself.
Okay.
So I worked out that as it loaded, it needed to have an initial impact and then into the load, so you give it the traction then. Whereas if you had it right on the end, it sent too much trauma.
Directly up the leg.
And we used to get slight filling of the legs.
Okay.
So I thought, let's move this. It's just too hard. Where it's landed, it's hitting something hard, so let's move it forward so it still can go into a grab.
Right.
So then you got the timeline. It's now called a timeline. At that point, I was just moving a grab feet.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what were some of the toughest terrains that you had to shoot for?
I think the desert. I think the worst one I dealt with was I set every horse up for a dry race in Ereth. I think it's 2000 something. Everything was a dry race.
Okay.
Yeah. And at 11 o'clock in the evening, it was the worst storm they've ever had. The whole area was under 2 foot of water, and it was flooded everywhere. So you can imagine you've got everything padded up, you've got hard going, and it's like skiing everywhere.
Right.
That was a nightmare.
Okay.
So I'm there trying to chop everything down. And when I say you couldn't even walk out with a coat on, you were soaked. And then at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the sun comes out and it's a rock hard.
Immediately.
So, I mean, it just changed so quickly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was so quickly. So that was probably one of the things that stuck in my mind. And obviously, a lot of people think when they go into the desert, it's going to be soft and it's not. It's quite abrasive.
Right.
And
The
hard.
sand. Yeah.
And it's a different type of terrain. So you put a different type of shoes on for that. So you want to try and keep them on the tark. So we have more like a rocker type full pad shoe, like an aluminum type shoe.
Okay.
That keeps it on top of the sand. So we're just playing around with different things, and also different types of shoes, like the Spider aluminium or the multi-directional shoe. I use a lot of those.
Okay.
People said, why are you putting that on? It's a horse's sand in it, it needs it. It wasn't just, I tried to tailor everything individually to that individual horse and also work with the home farrier.
Right.
Because as far as I'm concerned, I was the custodian of it when I was away with the team. He was looking after it at home, and we had to work together.
Okay. And was that sometimes difficult? Because I know sometimes egos can get in the way of those situations.
Sometimes, not very. I never actually had, I don't think I had that many problems. They've always been around long enough, and I used to go and meet them and work with them. I actually physically went there.
Okay.
And I was glad to have someone to talk to sometimes. And so, I've been having this problem. That's a good idea. And we remain friends still to this day.
Right. Now, spider plates, that's something that I've used a couple times, had success with. Why do you think it works? How do you think it works?
Centralization.
Okay.
Centralization.
Of the pressure?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bring everything to the centre.
Right.
Even on the shoes I do now, I work on everything around the centre. And that's how I found work.
As you developed all your different techniques,
going all over the place like this. Did you end up meeting other farriers of the other teams? Would there be collaboration there, or is it hiding your secrets?
No, we often, you do hide secrets. You do hide secrets. I remember being in Kentucky and we were practicing making roasters.
Oh, okay.
At the World Championships,
Yeah.
It was down there in the vet gate. So I was tapping around the next thing, making roasters.
Just in case you needed to put some on.
We don't think anyone there but making them.
Very cool.
We had lots of same people go around the circuit, so we will have our own little ways of dealing with things and trying to get the edge on each person, but we will keep them close to ourselves. And I was very good working out solutions, problems with all bits and pieces. I would often make bits of something up to alter something with what I had in a bag.
Okay.
Like
what would be an example of that?
With a pad. We were in Rome, we had a horse with a slip injury, and I've actually built up the one side of a fuck, but now we put like an insert in. I built it with a pad.
Okay. Yeah.
And made it work. Mm-hmm. And it did the job.
Right.
So it was good and riveted it together, really. And using different load areas in the foot.
Yeah.
I was doing all that. All sorts of things, quietly getting on with it.
Right.
Which is now used on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what were some of the lessons you learned with the different shore hardnesses of DIM?
Well, one of the things I learned very quickly is obviously...
If you would like to hear this episode in its entirety, please subscribe using the link in the show notes. Thank you for listening.